Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, how to voice radio. So today, we're going to be looking at Entei GX. Now, I know we've done a video about Entei GX, like every GX ever, because I started doing it around about Sun and Moon. We did do a video about Entei GX, and I said it was alright, probably not going to see a huge amount of play. And we're going to be looking at Entei GX in the new context of the new Infernape coming in Ultra Prism. Because in my Infernape video, a whole bunch of people said, hang on a second, Ross, you didn't look at Entei GX properly. I think you need to take another look with Entei. And you know what? I think you might be right. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to be looking at Entei GX. It's not seen very much play at all since it came out. But maybe, just maybe, it's about to get an awful lot better. So let's start off by looking at Entei GX. It is, of course, a fire Pokemon, which means you are hitting weakness against Golisopod, which is huge, because that's really good at the moment, and Decidueye, which, it comes and goes, but it's kind of hanging around. Downside, of course, I think weakness to water when Ultra Prism comes out is going to be a very bad thing, because the new Empoleon, it just looks like the best Pokemon in Ultra Prism. 2 energy, and it does 20 damage for every Pokemon on both players' benches. I mean, if Empoleon gets a full bench, it's hitting 100. Which means it's getting a one-hit KO on Entei. Now, I suppose Entei could use Fighting Fury Belt, but then similarly, Empoleon could use Field Blower, so let's say we'll call that one a draw. Now, in terms of the attacks, the first one, 50 damage for 2 energy. It's not particularly good, let's not waste any time on it. But the one we're really looking at it again for is the attack Fire Fang. 100 damage for a fire colorless. Now that does mean that you can't use double colorless energy, which is a little bit rubbish, but you can't have everything. 100 damage plus burn. Now, the new burn rules help a lot here. The new burn rule says that between turns you take 20 damage if burned, flip a coin if heads you're no longer damaged. This is much better than the old flip a coin between turns. If tails, you take 20 damage. Because if you always flipped heads, you never took any damage from burn. Whereas nowadays with the new burn rule, you always take 2 damage counters from burn. And then if you flip tails and don't get out the active, you take another 2 damage counters and so on and so forth. That sounds pretty good to me. But the new Infernape's got a rather sparkly ability, a rather good ability for this particular Pokemon, that means that instead of taking 2 damage counters between turns, your opponent will now take 6 damage counters between turns. And ladies and gentlemen, this is absolutely huge. Because, as I've said in a number of videos, the Pokemon trading card game is all about the numbers. It is about being able to hit numbers. Doing 100 plus 2 damage counters for burn, not good. Just not good. Now, I suppose the one argument with that is that if you had a Fighting Fury bout, it goes up to 130, and some Pokemon like Greninja and Baby Volcanion Haynick will be one-hit KO'd, but that's about it. But now that you're giving 6 damage counters for burn because you've got an Infernape on the bench, things are very, very different. Now, with a Fighting Fury bout, you're hitting 170. Oh, that just so happens to be the exact number of hit points that Tapu Lele has. Bye, Tapu Lele. But then if you add a choice band on there, you're hitting EXs and GXs up to 190, which is great because that gets Buzzwole, who's huge, and then all the Pokemon going down from Buzzwole, including Tapu Lele, and even getting something like Tapu Bulu, which, remember, the GX Tapus, Guardians, whatever you want to call them, do not have weakness, so even though you would expect Tapu Bulu to have a fire weakness, he don't, ladies and gentlemen, he don't. And I know that it's not an every turn kind of thing, but you could always use Professor Kukui here, then you would be going up to 210, and you would be hitting Zoroark GX, which is of course the best Pokemon in the format. But we don't need to use Professor Kukui here, because we've got Volcanion EX. And essentially, the new burn rule means that burn with Infernape is 2 steam ups in and of itself, rather than 2/3 of a steam up. So with the old burn rules, if you did 1 steam up plus the burn damage, you wouldn't be KOing a Tapu Lele. If you did 2 steam ups plus the burn damage, you wouldn't be KOing a Buzzwole. I know we've always had the option of Volcanion, but Volcanion is kind of clunky and annoying. First of all, you've got to have the Volcanion on your bench. Second of all, you've got to have the energy in your hand to discard with Steam Up. That is not the easiest thing to accomplish. What this new burn rule and it's not that new, it came around with Sun and Moon, which was over a year ago now. But what it does, along with Infernape, is it helps you hit the numbers. Nobody's saying that Entei couldn't hit the numbers before. Entei could hit the numbers before, but it revolved around multiple Steam Ups and having the energy in your hand, and it was just annoying. Now that we've got Infernape, you're doing 160, which means against a lot of Pokemon, a choice band will be all that you need. Against non-GX Pokemon, it takes something mammoth like my boy Mamoswine to even take a hit from this. And remember, there is no you can't use it next turn malarkey. There's no discard energy attached to Entei malarkey. Most of these attacks that do 160, think Turtonator GX, there's discard 2 energy. Or think something like Lapras, you can't use this attack the following turn. Generally, if you're doing lots of damage, there's a big downside. But here, you are doing the damage through burn as well. There is no downside. Well, I mean, I suppose the downside is you need to have an Infernape on your bench. But as soon as you do, you're doing 160, which a whole bunch of Pokemon can do, but only with big downsides. Turtonator, discard 2 energy. Well, who wants to do that? Then you got to get the energy back. Lapras, you can't use this attack next turn. Brilliant, that's a little bit annoying. Raichu, GX, you do 30 damage to yourself. Hang on a second. Why do I want to do 30 damage to myself again? This is nice, and it hits the numbers. Now, we've still got the issue of the fairly awkward energy cost here, given that, as previously mentioned, you can't use double colourless energy, but you can use Max Elixir. You're a basic Pokemon, play Max Elixir, look at the top 6 cards of your deck. If you find a basic energy there, you can attach it to a benched basic Pokemon, and life is good. Yay! Not to mention the aforementioned Volcanion with Power Heater, which just allows you to attach 2 energy from your discard, 1 to each of 2 different bench Pokemon, which sounds quite nice to me. And of course, we've always got our old friend Kiawe. Search your deck for 4 fire energy, attach them to one of your Pokemon, and your turn ends. But as I've always said with Kiawe, if you go first, you can't attack. You've got no attack you want to be doing turn 1, so why don't you take advantage of Kiawe? You're going to end your turn without attacking anyway. Why not just use a Kiawe? And now that Tapu Lele's in the format, you can wonder tag for a Kiawe if you're going first. And if you're not going first and there's an attack, etc., maybe you want to use a Power Heater, then don't. That's the beauty of Kiawe with Tapu Lele in the format. And I know you don't need 4 energy on an Entei. Well, don't put 4 energy on an Entei. In the best case scenario here, you go first, you get a Chimchar down, and you then play a Kiawe so that you've got 3 energy on an Entei. Turn 2, you rare candy into an Infernape, and then you're hitting for a minimum 160 every single turn. Alright, maybe you come across something really weird like a fairy deck playing Comfy. I don't think you're going to, but you never know, it could happen. But other than that, you could, in theory, be just absolutely wrecking. Now, getting a turn 1 Kiawe plus a turn 2 Infernape, we all know that isn't going to happen every single game. But it doesn't need to happen every single game. You can use Power Heater, you can use Max Elixir, and let's face it, you at any point in the game will be loving doing 160 every single turn. I mean, something like a Darkrai. Now, I am aware that Darkrai has fallen out of favour. I have been paying attention. But doing 160 before something like a Choice Band, Darkrai from Breakpoint would need 7 energy on the field to do that with Dark Pulse. That's a lot of energy. And that's kind of my point here. There's no big downside like there is for Turtonator. You need to have the stage 2 on the bench, I get it, but once you've got Infernape out, this is a really good attack. 120, meh. 160, yes. I think this is definitely worth testing, and it's something I will be testing over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. But before the plugs, do make sure you chuck a comment down below. Tell me if you think this deck is legit. Tell me if you think Entei is coming back. And oh yeah, remember how I did that video a couple days ago about how fire decks might be really good with the upcoming metal invasion? Just leaving that hanging. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and the whole Twitch thing. Do make sure that you are subscribed over at Wassy Plays, my video game centered channel, which I'm trying to grow. I would be delighted. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so by going to patreon.com/PTCGRadio. There's podcasts to get. It's going to be fun. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.